National Weather Service in Archive Land has issued a blitz nerd warning until midnight tonight. This storm is capable of producing long, unfocused rants about meaningless topics. All those that approach this system will get stranded in a mental haze.
And welcome to the Oddity Archive, the show that isn't afraid to give its viewers a total snow job. Quite literally. Yeah. Anyway, today marks our third proper round of weather warning type stuff. But the twist this time, in case you haven't gotten all the hints yet, is that it's going to be all winter weather this time around. So with that, the impetus behind this episode was reality. This year so far has not been a good one in archive land. So just a day or two after New Year's, I was starting to fish around for the would-be next archive topic, and the snow just started dumping outside. And it led me down this rabbit hole. But by the time all was said and done with that little system, we had about 1.5 feet of snow on the ground. But, that's not inherently horrible, but it came over the span of a rather Chinese water torture-esque 2.5 days. Basically, this meant that it was consistently coming down just enough that if you got out onto the road at all, you were probably going to get stuck or slide into a tree or something. And if you were like me and stayed home throughout the whole thing, Mother Nature decided to play a few pranks on you. So the recurring one being that the snow would stop, the sky would kind of start to lighten outside, and you check the radar on the internet, on the local TV station. Okay, doesn't look too bad. Guess I better get my coat and stuff on and start digging out. Then you step outside and Mother Nature turns the snow back on. Harder than before. And I guess you could say the final insult to this whole thing was we managed to somehow just miss blizzard status. So here in the States, the legal threshold, if you will, for a blizzard is that the wind has to be consistently blowing at least 35 miles an hour. And there has to be, snow of some sort involved as well. Well, the winds were consistently blowing at 25 to 30 miles an hour the whole time. So anyway, being the Oddity archive guy and being kind of stuck inside for a lot of this, I went and dutifully recorded a lot of local news and stuff, kind of hoping for the EAS to go off. And it never did happen, but I did get some fairly alternately informative and amusing local news footage. And that makes up our first montage today.
Right now, Interstate 90 is closed from Chamberlain to Sioux Falls. Interstate 29 is closed from Sioux Falls to Brookings. They're expected to remain closed throughout the day. The roads are so dangerous in Minnehaha County this midday that the county has pulled plows from the roads. Even in city limits, drivers are struggling to get around. Many cars are getting stuck in their driveways. Others are getting stuck on city streets, and it's not just side streets. Our news crews have spotted multiple cars stuck on some of the city's busiest roadways.
Notice those areas of darker blue that we have, and they're filling in again near Larchwood to the northwest to include Sioux Falls, much of southwestern Minnesota, also looking at that to fill in.
When we were out there, the snow was coming down so heavy that our windshield wipers couldn't keep up. And I know some of the plow drivers here in town had the same problem.
Sure.
So this is near the handyman, and we were going downhill. A police officer was out there directing traffic, and we rolled down our window, and he kind of yelled at us. He said, you can go down, but you can't come back up.
And along with school and interstate closures, several businesses are closed, including the Empire Mall and Sioux Falls Regional Airport. The city's outdoor ice rinks are also closed, and Sioux Area Metro is not running buses due to the weather.
Workplace injuries can happen to anyone. Sadly, your financial obligations don't end after an accident.
Sidewalks, they're a mess too. Take a look at this video we shot in downtown Sioux Falls this morning. With all the heavy snow and blowing snow, even the snowblower got stuck on the sidewalk again.
There is, and this is a common scene across Kettleland, or at least in southeastern South Dakota, Sioux Falls. Cars have been working their way to get out, and this one has been a slow go. I've been following this one since our last weather hit. He looks like he's free, and he's leaving a shovel behind him, too. Do you see that, Dan?
Yeah, can't blame him. And this is what it looks like from a DOT cam north of Sioux Falls and I-29. There's an interstate there, we assure you, which, as we mentioned earlier, is closed. Officials say crews could continue moving and picking up snow for the next 3 to 4 weeks.
I'm going to debate the 12 inches from the National Weather Service. I think we're probably closer to 20.
With the amount of snow that we have, it's piling up. We're running out of places to put it for now. And as such, the piles are going to get higher. They're going to be harder to see around. Lanes are going to get narrowed. We're going to go from 4 lanes to 2 lanes to 1 lane.
After a lot of cleanup work, the Sioux Falls Regional Airport is back open today. The airport posted these pictures on Facebook, saying crews worked around the clock to reopen. The first flight arrived about an hour ago. You still need to check with your airline for flight schedules. As people wait for businesses and residents to cut a path through the snow, some pedestrians are stepping into the street and sharing space with traffic.
It's important you get your sidewalks shoveled out for pedestrian safety, but additionally, we want services to continue. Your mailman needs to get to where they need to get to. The officers or other first responders need to get there. Kids, I'm assuming school will be open tomorrow. A lot of kids need those sidewalks cleared to get to school.
And still digging out in Sioux Falls. Yeah, probably the mail might be a little delayed in that neighborhood. It's pretty thick out there. Crews are working hard. We'll be back. Any more snow on the way? We'll have details coming up.
And it's snowing again. Lovely. Anyway, when I do these weather warnings type episodes, I think the expectation is, and I totally get it, that it becomes just a big ball, if you will, of civil defense broadcasting. So emergency alert system, if it's a little older, emergency broadcast system, or if it's old enough, Conelrad. But the thing is, with regards to winter weather, the civil defense stuff didn't really start happening for all intents and purposes until maybe 10 years ago, if that. So if you've come here looking for the dual tone signals and the duck calls and the scary stuff, you're not going to get it here. Sorry. But if you're willing to go along for the ride, I do think I have some interesting stuff here. Now, having said that, the remainder of today's episode is only going to revolve around 2 particular storms, and pretty famous ones at that. But yeah, I just have so much footage that it's just better to consolidate this one. So let's kick things off with, I've got 2 storms, obviously. One from 1967 and one from 1977. So yeah, truly no civil defense stuff here. But let's start with 67 and the Great Chicago Blizzard of the last week of January of 1967. And we're going to check in with WTAS FM. And actually, that's selling it a bit short. This is, the air check is from WTAS, but this is actually a pooled effort with WCGO AM. Now, WTAS was normally a music station, specifically one of those beautiful music, MOR, middle-of-the-road type stations. But during this storm, they had to go over to being a serious news outlet, and I think they did a solid job here. But the fascination of this one to me is, this is 1967, pre-internet, pre-cell phone, and so it makes sense within the realm of radio if you're trying to operate in the public interest to try and just become one big information outlet. And WTAS effectively became, there's still news and weather reports, but effectively became an audio bulletin board, I guess you could say. There's a lot of people who have lost track of each other trying to reconnect and what's open and what's closed and just what's going on out there. And so, yeah, it's kind of truly hearing things on a community level.
Through the combined news facilities of WCGO and WTAS-FM, here is the latest South Suburban, regional, national, and international news, brought to you in part by the Girardi Funeral Home, 2520 Chicago Road in Chicago Heights.
Snow, 23 inches of it, is on the ground in the South Suburban area this afternoon. That was the grand total as of 9 this morning. It included another 2.8 inches that fell during the early morning hours. Those who must get to their jobs should leave their cars at home, either walk or attempt to take public transportation. At the present, there is no bus transportation in the South Suburban area.
Sister Georgette has told us that presently the hospital is understaffed. Normally during this period of day they would have 35 to 40 doctors. Right now they have about 4 or 5. Chief Leone from the Chicago Heights Fire Department is out in his own vehicle, a fire inspector's vehicle, and another vehicle with a bulldozer in front of it right now. This is the only way that people who are critically ill or critically injured can get to the hospital. This is what he's doing right now.
At Park Forest, roads are not passable. The shopping center is closed. There are no serious injuries reported. Of course, schools are closed in Park Forest. At Dalton, stores, schools, and shops are closed. Thornridge is housing 300 pupils and 12 teachers who have been there since yesterday afternoon. Another 200 persons are being sheltered at the Dalton Bowl, and food is being taken in by Dalton police. Evergreen Park had a fatality from an apparent heart attack when a resident shoveling snow suffered a heart attack. John Ivas, 54 years old, of 2932 West 99th Street in Evergreen Park, was dead on arrival at Little Company of Mary Hospital.
And now a sports report. First of all, a reminder that almost all sports activities have been canceled in the South Suburban region. The Rich East Homewood Flossmoor game, originally scheduled for tonight, will be played next Saturday, February 4th. All other sports activities at Crete have been canceled. As you may know by now, the Crete Warrior Dome has collapsed, and so there will be no sports activities at Crete.
One of the most preferred new home plans today is called the Raised Ranch, with 2 complete living levels for your family. For the very latest in raised ranches, you'll want to see the Burnside's Sherwood model at Glenwood Manor, 183rd and Halstead.
Well, for a Friday night dinner that's delicious and reasonable, take the family to Mattis Restaurant in Chicago Heights. Order Mattis Jumbo Shrimp Dinner. Giant shrimp from the blue waters of the Gulf, deep fried to a fluffy golden brown and served with French fried potatoes and garden fresh salad. That's just $1.75. Since we've mentioned water, we should tell you this. For safety's sake, it might be wise to take some empty jars or bottles and put water in them and store them in your refrigerator overnight, in case pipes freeze or water supplies are damaged. Fire departments suggest you fill your bathtubs with water in case a fire breaks out in your home. In Lansing, some 700 travelers are stranded there. They've been taken well care of, though. Some have been housed at one of the churches, the others at the Lands Theater. They're watching movie films.
Mrs. Franklin Taylor, her husband has been missing. She still has not received word. Have you heard anything on this yet, Clara?
No, no word yet.
Still no word yet, okay. Mrs. Franklin Taylor of Beecher, her husband is still missing. Rock Island Railroad, here we are. We received this call earlier. They are looking for men and boys to help them clear the tracks of ice and snow, the banks, snow banks and drifts tomorrow. The youngsters, the boys, must be 16 years of age or over. Steve Miller in Gary, Indiana, still no word on him. His wife had called. He has been missing, and his whereabouts is not known. He resides at 2519 Georgia in Gary. Let's see, I'll tell you what. Clara, if you're set to go with a little more recorded stereo music, I think we'll have that for a few moments, and we'll be back shortly.
The Chicago blizzard of '67 is also noteworthy in that it's home to some of the earliest known surviving video air check footage of this sort of thing. And I use the air quotes there because this is in-house footage. This is from a kinescope. But there were two stations in Chicago that saw fit to save at least some of this stuff. It would be truly noteworthy if it was an amateur off-air recording, with one of those really early open-reel half-inch black and white deals. But I don't think anybody was recording that. So anyway, there is footage from two stations. I'm only going to run footage from one, though. The one I am not going to run is WMAQ, the NBC station in Chicago. There's a few minutes of footage, and it's on YouTube, and I just don't think it's all that interesting. To me, the real interesting stuff comes from the then recently established little indie station, WFLD, Channel 32. Now, of course, WFLD became one of the first Fox affiliates in the 80s, and nowadays they have a much bigger budget and everything's real nice and slick with them, but in 1967, it was a shoestring operation. So what you're going to see here is about as homebrew a newscast as you are going to get away with on TV as of 1967, and you would not get away with this at all today. But the only real set there is the anchor desk, and otherwise they're just swinging the camera around to other people or taking live feed from other places. And of course the weather factors in, so it winds up feeling that much more just thrown together, improvised. So yeah, I consider this a real fascinating one. And if anything, I'm doing a bit of a disservice with this montage. So if you like what you see, please go hit up our friends over at Fuzzy Memories here on YouTube or fuzzymemories.tv and watch the whole half hour. Consider this just a little appetizer.
Good evening. Welcome to Newscope again. I'm Patrick Muldowney. Well, we're back again after a 1-hour break. We were on the air today for more than 10 hours, bringing you Chicago's information on what was happening in the city and the surrounding area. We used the facilities of the Chicago Daily News and the Chicago Sun-Times, as well as Channel 32's own facilities, and the facility of ham radio station WA9 RTP with Jim Roper and Dick Cox at the controls. We'll have a report from them later in Newscope. Tonight on Channel 32, we presented a very unique feature. We did something that has never been done before in broadcasting. We brought to you ham radio reports that have never been broadcast live on a television station before.
South of Dempster, and the closed streets are right now McCormick Street, Grosse Point Road, Old Orchard Road, and all side streets, and 50% of all main arteries are open.
Well, it's just about over with. Although it isn't all over with completely because, as you just heard, the temperatures are still going down. The Weather Bureau tells me that bitterly cold weather is going to hit Chicago by dawn. They say the temperature is going to go down to about 10 degrees above zero before dawn. In Springfield today, Governor Kerner met with some officials from the National Guard. He called out all the helicopters and some of their half trucks to come up to the Chicago area and see if they can't clear up this monumental mess. Even long-distance trains were arriving 2 to 4 hours late today. One of the few ways to get anywhere, I think, from all the reports we've had, is the CTA's rapid transit. The trains are running pretty much on time. The buses, of course, are quite another matter. The storm's effect on food stores was almost immediate. Local supermarkets reported their shelves were clear of milk, meat, bread, and cigarettes. Their staff couldn't get to work.
Today we presented the longest weather report ever run on a Chicago television station, but it wouldn't be complete unless we gave you a different look at the weather. We'll take a look through the eyes of the Sun-Times and Chicago Daily News cameramen. This is how they saw the super snow in Chicago. I don't know where that came from, but that wasn't Chicago today. Well, it's been a long day. We went on the air at 12:30, and it is now 5 minutes to 12. We'd like to say thank you. We couldn't have done it without all of you. Thank you. I'm Patrick Muldowney. Good night.
It's the end of the year, so you know what that means?
Carl's New Year's clearance sale is on.
Save up to 55% on floor displays, one-of-a-kind, and scratch and dent major appliances. You get free installation on select dishwashers, save up to 40% on clearance electronics. Outdoor cooking is priced to move. You even get 60 to 80% off select TV stands. It's Carl's New Year's clearance sale on now.
Carl's, your servicing dealer since 1956.
Oh, wonderful. Let's jump to the next storm here, shall we? Anyway, this next one was a true whopper of a storm. So, in Chicago in 1967, they got about 2 feet of snow. With this storm, almost to the day, a decade later, they got over 8 feet over the span of 5 days. So this storm just absolutely slammed both the extreme southeastern peninsula of Ontario and the Buffalo, New York area. And so, like the Chicago stuff, I have a nice amount of radio and in-house TV stuff, so we'll just attack this the same way as Chicago. So starting with the radio stuff, we're going to listen a bit to the late CJRN AM, which was based out of the Canadian side of Niagara Falls, and hence the C first call letters. But the big difference between this and WTAS back in Chicago was that CJRN was already an overall community station. They were mostly news and public affairs sort of stuff. So this wasn't a stretch for them. This wasn't them trying to reinvent themselves. So anyway, what we have here is, whereas Chicago was kind of becoming an audio bulletin board, here it was more like a trading post. So-and-so needs such a part for their snowmobile. I need somebody to work on this. I'll give you this. This needs to happen. Somebody needs to be transported from point A to point B, and on and on and on. So, yeah, this definitely has a different flavor to it. But at the same time, it does wind up being kind of an interesting look at the cultural differences between Canada and the United States. Rather amusingly, they repeatedly take the opportunity to do the whole disappointed parent finger-wagging thing at Buffalo, New York, and saying you're irresponsible and so on and so forth. All the while giving their little spiel, slowly but distinctly descending into borderline madness themselves.
One witness said thieves ignoring police warning shots. Oh my goodness, of all things, warning shots and continuing to raid vehicles abandoned in the snow-clogged roads. Another person said a gang of 50 youths looting stalled tractor-trailer trucks and using sleds and wagons to haul off the goods. Police in Buffalo say scores of businesses, homes, and stalled vehicles. Oh, I don't understand this, John. We're looted during the weekend by thieves taking advantage. We've had incidents of looting around the peninsula. For Pete's sake, stay away from those vehicles. In Buffalo, New York, National Guardsmen, the plea being put out on radio and on television, you are wanted for 5 days of active duty. National Guardsmen listening, you are wanted for 5 days of active duty because of the situation there.
Emergency of what kind?
Hello, John. How are you?
Fine.
Listen, this is C. Beer from Stevensville. This has been brought to your attention before. I know it. I know you have a lot of American listeners. We are using Channel 4 down here for all kinds of emergencies. Over 50% of the rescue operations going on down here are being done by a CB. Right now, there is in a four-wheel drive vehicle with regional police in his car trying to get a lady to the hospital in Fort Erie who apparently is in need of an operation.
Gentleman who called wanting food for that dog in Thunder Bay, please call 894-1459. That was the dog that hadn't been fed in some 2 days It was apparently loose, and the suggestion was if you're going to feed the dog, kind of go up there and toss it out of the window. Don't get out, because the dog is a little hungry. I still haven't heard whether or not we've got some food out to 3 children and a mother. And let's be blunt about it, the mother and the 3 children, the mother cannot afford to pay for the food. The welfare check has not arrived, and she can't afford to pay for the food, but we can't afford to keep them hungry. Snowbound Howard Fritz of Fort Erie is offering free milk to anyone who can get through. Now, he's only going to have to throw it away. Trucks can't get into his farm to pick it up, so snowmobiles are welcome to pick up the milk. The farm is off Point Abino Road. Now, we know that Crystal Beach has run out of milk. So the snowmobilers in Crystal Beach area, or any place else actually, if you can get to the Howard Fritz farm of Fort Erie, he's going to have to throw his milk away because he can't get anything in there. If you can get there, take that milk to Crystal Beach, that's where we need it. The snowmobilers are starting to break down now, and so are the four-wheel drivers and the snow plows, and these fellows have been putting gasoline in there and making repairs for the last 36 to 48 solid hours. The snowmobiles are starting to break down, and we're getting some money in from people, and we've also got some people saying where the heck can they get some repairs done. Well, if you're listening, we're going to put these numbers on the line. Mr. Moon of Stevensville needs a drive clutch for an Arctic Cat Panther 399cc, a 1970 model. Where can he locate one? If he can get that drive clutch going, he can get his snowmobile back on the road. Carrie's Welding Service. Now, this place is open free of charge to get those snowplows back on the road. If you have a snowplow that's broken down in Welland, Carrie's Welding Service will do it for you free of charge to get you back out there. Call 384-9037. The wind is starting to hit us again at 50 to 60 miles an hour. Was it 50 to 60, Bill? I'm sorry.
Gusting as high as 50 in some areas, John,
Okay.
bringing the wind chill factor down to 40 to 50 below.
That's where I was getting that 50 stuff. Okay, it's still high enough to say that if you allow your child out, you're a little bit irresponsible.
Beaver Dams Road. That's Thorold Niagara Falls town line between Beaver Dam Road and Thorold Stone Road. There are too many cars piling up. Too many cars piling up. I don't understand that situation at all. We've been telling you for the past 73 hours to stay off the roads.
And there's a few cars that have been absolutely wrecked because they're stuck. The wind comes in, the snow piles over them. The snow plows are going through at about 25 miles an hour to get enough speed up to get through the snow, and they're hitting cars. Boom. That's it. It's an emergency, and there's no sorry, gee whiz, or golly. They're pulling the smashed cars off the side and dumping them.
Please get your cars off the streets. Get your cars off the streets to let the snow plows through. If you do not get those cars off the streets, you may end up in the same situation that everybody else has done that left their cars abandoned. You may, in the air, you may end up scrapes and nicks along your vehicle. Simmer down, John. The OPP advising Highway 406.
I'm all right, it's you.
Sorry, I lost my hand. Highway 406.
Well, and where now the patience is running thin. The patience is running. I'm looking outside studio window here, and I'm seeing cars go back and forth, and you can't, they're not on an emergency, you're back and forth, and if you're listening to me now, you have no idea how angry it's making people just because you've got to go out and do something somewhere or what. I don't know what it is, but now the patience is worn thin enough, and in Welland, you are being hauled off the road. That's it. The Army is getting you off and the police are pulling you over. So we've been advising people in situations whereby we get to know there's a shortage to fill up your bathtubs, but some people are still caught without water. And a suggestion here, which has just come into me, was that if you are out of water, remember, you've got 5 gallons of fresh water in your toilet tank. So there's a reservoir you probably didn't even know you had.
To contrast the rather parental Canadian radio coverage, all the TV coverage I have for you here is from the Buffalo, New York side of things. And whereas the Canadians had their own flavor of snark, the folks from Buffalo definitely had theirs. But it's that cultural difference thing again. Whereas the Canadians were more passive-aggressive, the people in Buffalo were just straight aggressive, especially the people at station WGRZ, which I have since dubbed WGRZ. So anyway, I did find some other footage from New York from this storm, and their approach was decidedly friendlier than either of the other two aforementioned stations. So I have included it here just to ease things up a bit. Okay, you got me. I lied. I only included it because it's WBEN. I mean, I have to acknowledge a station with such awesome call letters.
What are these guys doing on Buffalo City streets?
Wish we didn't have to be.
The plea has been turned into an order. You must stay off city streets. Mayor Murkowski declaring a state of emergency as of 6:30 this morning. Travel restricted to 11 classifications, including fuel supply, health and hospital service, food distribution, and public transportation. Those that violate the order are subject to a fine up to $500 and a jail term up to 90 days. The mayor also placed a call to the White House today, but all he got in return was a call from presidential aide Jack Watson. Watson listened and said to be sure to send the government all the up-to-date information. Maybe we should send them some snow, too.
Opening main arteries the next priority. The National Guard working today to finish projects in Orchard Park and on Grand Island, also involved in traffic control, clearing roads to and around 4 city hospitals on the agenda for the Guard shift that begins work at 8 tonight.
Many cars abandoned on the thruway were towed into the parking lot of the Hutchinson Hose Company in Amherst. The fire hall served as a refugee center during the height of the storm. Now it's a claim center. Many of the cars brought here show signs of damage from accidents that stalled thruway traffic days ago or from snowplows that abruptly uncovered the cars during removal operations.
Some town supervisors like Lancaster's Stanley Kaza feel people aren't paying enough attention to their problems. While Buffalo gets visits from the governor, plows, equipment, and manpower from the Army and National Guard, the towns say all they get is snow.
This is Beard Avenue in Buffalo. Not bad, huh? Well, this was plowed by Ken Moore 3 days ago. Now take a look at Beard on the other side of Hurdle Avenue, where the Kenmore plows didn't go. That's the difference.
State equipment attacked the Kensington Expressway today, but even the big rotary and plow ran into problems. A wayward muffler got caught in the works, delaying the cleanup operations until it could be removed from the blades.
While you're stranded wherever you are, trying to call someone stranded wherever they are, these operators have been stranded here trying to help you get your call through.
They've had to come over here and work, long hours in order to maintain the record volume of calls, by the way, that we've never witnessed before.
One thing these overworked operators don't need is foolish calls. They tell me people should use their heads. Try to borrow money, walk to the grocery store, ask a neighbor, or go to a local community center for food. Try to solve your own problems. Ralph Treat of 442 Cornwall. Treat arrested on an arson charge last night. Police investigator Jerry McEntee tells News Center his men raided Treat's house this afternoon, recovered about $5,000 in goods looted from abandoned cars and trucks. The haul includes 4 International Harvester chainsaws and a variety of radios, TV sets, and tools.
Water from the fire hoses turned to solid ice, locking the $60,000 engine to the street, which was also a target for vandals.
Yes, it was stripped. The radio was stripped out of there, and as you can see, the bell was taken off of there.
Love that super duper.
Hi. Thank goodness Super Duper stores are open and are doing everything possible to keep supplies rolling into the stores.
National Fuel Gas was out checking thermostats in business places today. They called compliance to the 55-degree setting pathetic. National Fuel Gas sent out about 50 people, supervisors, office people, even one of their tax accountants, to check business places and enforce the 55-degree rule. After a double check, National Fuel Gas has the authority to shut the gas off if the thermostats in stores are not set at 55. National Fuel Gas will continue its daily checks.
But today is Groundhog Day, and finally tonight on the lighter side, we thought we'd check with our groundhog. You've all heard of Punxsutawney Phil. Well, I'd like you to meet Cheektowaga Charlie. Charlie, nice to have you.
How are you, Kevin?
Well, I'm fine. Well, a lot of people want to know, did you see your shadow or not?
Kevin, I didn't have a chance. It took about 2 National Guardsmen and a snowplow just to get me out of this hole. You can see the kind of situation I'm in out here.
Excuse me?
You know what? I've been awfully hungry this winter.
Well, I'll bring you a bag of peanuts a little later on. That's it as far as...
You look pretty good to me. I think you'll probably do it. Could be the beginning of a whole career for me.
Mark Russell writes, "Hang in there, Buffalo. You're a hearty people, and this is your finest hour. You will fight winter in your streets, in your neighborhoods, and in your homes, and you will never surrender. You have taken the jokes and the put-downs about your town with your usual good nature, all the time knowing the weak live elsewhere. Besides, think how you use the occasion years from now when your kids ask, "What did you do in the storm, Daddy?"
Okay, it's really starting to pick up out there. I really need to get some gas for the snowblower and some better food than last time. I am not about to live on ketchup packets and canned fruit for another 3 days. Excuse me.
I shovel and I shovel and I shovel that snow. I gotta get out, but my car won't go. I gotta get out, but my car won't go. I call up the neighbor, he's got four-wheel drive. He can't get out, he's buried alive. Crank up the blower. Hey, it won't run. Grab the shovel. Ah, it's much more fun. My back is broke. You're halfway there. Snowing again. I shovel and I shovel and I shovel that snow. I gotta get out, but my car won't go.
Well, Charlie, I guess we'll just have to keep watching first team weather and find out if we're going to get any
You better
more.
believe it, buddy, because I'm going back in this hole and I'm going to stay warm until springtime comes.
Okay.